nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all. It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Midday Monologue Monday. As you know, I'm your buddy Big Johnny G, and what I want to do today is continue our conversation that we've been having concerning building your own board game collection. Now, what I have been doing is categorizing it as I do my shelves by theme or genre. But I want to take a break from that for a moment, and I want to zero in on something that we've mentioned a little bit so far in the other ones, but I would like to give it its own category because I think it's that important. So what I'd like to do is start a conversation with you about one-player games. Building your board game shelf for solo play games. All right, why don't you join me down the table, and I'll tell you what I think are perfect games for that category, and maybe you can put something in the comments that I missed or forgot. I'll see you down the table. One-player board games, card games, dice games, tabletop adventures, if you will. Games that are specifically made with the intent of one person running the game. There are some great one-player games out there. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, honestly, the only game I can think of that you could play one player was Dark Tower. I mean, you couldn't do it with Hero Quest or Dungeons and Dragons. Well, there was a couple of solo D&D modules out, but that's not really the same thing. But nowadays, one-player options to games or solo play specific games have become very, very popular. And I think that's kind of timely, almost like it was looking forward to what was happening or going to happen. But there are some great games made specifically just for you. But what I mean by you is I mean the individual, a single person. Now, usually I go through these, with these building lists. I go through a very particular way, going with one-player games, two-player games, cooperative, competitive, one versus all. Well, obviously, that pattern's not going to work for this rundown, is it? So instead, I put a little list together based on theme. Well, sort of based on theme, in part anyway. Well, we'll just handle this the way it drops, right? So now, first of all, there are a few science fiction based games. If you're a sci-fi fan and you enjoy board games, we do have some one-player only options for you to consider and look at. The first one I'd like to say is Desolate, and this is by Grey Gnome Games. And in Desolate, you are the sole survivor of a crashed rescue mission to a far-off alien moon where you've lost contact with the scientists there. And in this game, you get there and you discover why. Because the base has been overrun with evil aliens. Well, are they really evil? We are encroaching on their property, on their territory, in their area. Anyway, that's neither here nor there for the purpose of the game. The game is you have to escape and collect energy cells. So you have to go through the game. And this is a really great, fun game. It's a declaration game where you're going to be exploring through the deck of the game as you go. And it's a two-card, one-choice sort of system where you're going to play two cards out. One of them you can see, and the other one's face down. And you choose the one you can see or the face down one in order to deal with. It has an interesting resource system, I find, managing your ammunition along with your health, and most importantly, because you have so little of it to start with, and you have to spend some every time you go down another level, and that's oxygen. Be very careful of how you spend your oxygen. This is a very, very fun game. It has a couple of small expansions, plus it has a large box expansion, Insurgents. And actually, if you have the 2 mini card packs and the Insurgents expansion, you can actually change this from a 1-player game to a 4-player game. So start off with a 1-player game, learn how to play, get some tactics, understand how the cards come out and what they mean and what they're going to do, and then you'll be ready to teach others when you get the expansions. Z-Man Games has acquired at least some sort of right, I don't know how much, but to do the old Choose Your Own Adventure books and to do them as games. And they have 2 out, and the second one was science fiction based. Now, yes, you can play with any amount of players you want with this game, and it just becomes sort of like this decision-making game. You know, where you sit down, you decide what you and everyone else thinks is the best choice to do. Turn to page 97 or turn to page 103. But really, at its core, it's meant to be a solo read-through, just like the books originally were. And in this game, it's going to take you to worlds far and gone. Worlds that's going to expand upon what they did with their first board game, House of Danger, and they're going to take this and change a lot of things up now. Instead of book chapters, now there's planets. Each time you go to a specific planet, you read through that planet's deck. And all the while, you're trying to find the source of the signal of the evil Power Master. Because when you find it, when you go through all the adventures and all the planets, collect all the clues, if your signal booster reaches the top before his counter does, then you get a chance to face off with him. And that's another set of decks. Depending on what you've done, you may have one of, I think it's 3 or 4 decks that you're going to get to choose from. And then there are several epilogues afterwards. So it brings the replayability of this up a lot more than the original House of Danger had, while still maintaining this really fun feel. Now, Sojourn, or Journey Through Time by Wyvern Games, this is, well, you can play 2 players if you have 2 sets of the game. And I don't, so I've never had the opportunity to play this 2 players. But it is originally meant as a solo experience where you are a time traveler and your time device is broken and the energy is running out and you only have a few jumps left. And you have to find the rest of the pieces in order to specifically get back to your home time. And meanwhile, you're going to have to survive some of the worst possible incidences on this planet's history. And you're also going to get a chance to see some very beautiful moments in the human timeline as well. You never know exactly what it's going to be, but you know you need to find these pieces. These, I think it's 4 or 6, 4, yes, the 4 pieces that you're going to need in order to get home. So if you don't, then you're going to be trapped in time. Now, if fantasy is more your setting than sci-fi, there are several very good solo games available for that theme. First one I'd like to mention by Ultimate Games, and that is Unbroken. Unbroken is a fabulous resource management game hidden as a dungeon delve. Specifically, you are the last survivor of what was almost a total party kill. But you did survive. And now it's time for 2 things: revenge and getting the hell out of there. So as you're working your way back out, you're going to have to survive the best you can. You're going to have to manage your resources, your food, your health, but also things that you acquire along the way. Pieces of wood and metal that you're going to use in order to craft weapons. And then when they're crafted, to upgrade them. All in an attempt to fight the final boss and get the hell out of Dodge. This is an extremely tense game, but not an overly bearing so. It's not the kind of game where you're going to bite your fingers off at it, but you're definitely going to feel the strings of tension pulling at you as the game ramps up and you go deeper and deeper. Or actually, I guess, coming further up to escape, right? Because you're trying to get out of the dungeon. But this game is going to keep you coming back to the table to play it. Now, another game that's going to give you that same exact feeling of wanting to get it down to the table and wanting to play as much as possible comes from Grey Gnome Games, the ones who brought us Desolate. And in this one, Jason Glover has taken the Desolate engine, tweaked it and changed it into a fantasy game, Iron Helm. And in this game, you're done. You got it, you're done. You've been adventuring most of your life. You've barely survived up to this point, and you're ready to retire. But you need some scratch to retire with. So you decide on one last delve. By yourself. Keep everything, and then retire. But for an aged adventurer, things are gonna be tough. This is also a resource management game where you're going to have to be able to keep and control and balance everything that you need in order to move forward and continue through the dungeon. Now, during the course of this game, you are going to get a chance to improve yourself through skills and talents, as well as gaining new items, magic items, mundane items, anything that will be able to help you potentially on your final quest. That also would have been a decent name, I guess. But Iron Helm has a sort of resolve to it, right? Now, another great thing I love about Iron Helm is the use of card packages. These little tiny expansions, which I really think are worth it, especially if you're looking for a more of a Dungeons & Dragons, old school Dungeons & Dragons feel, because these mini card packs are like modules. And there are different levels depending on how many adventures your character has played, what level your character is at with their talents and their equipment and such like that. So it definitely keeps itself going, right? And it's a great game. If you're looking for a solo-only game, you're not going to go wrong with Iron Helm. Now, there are a few other games that don't so easily fall into categories, or just don't I don't know where to fit them. I know on my shelf, like the first one I'm going to mention, I fit under high adventure, but the first two. So anyway, why don't we just jump right into that? So two, yes, okay, two from high adventure style gaming. I got to say is first of all, The Abandons. And now The Abandons by Pixie Puzzle, they put together this very simple square card game system where you're following this inner voice that you hear, and you find it, and it gets you to this in-depth labyrinth, right? But it's alive, and the rooms are shifting constantly, and you're now trapped in there. And this is a tile-playing game where how you exit on a tile will determine if you were going to play the next card, the second card, the third card, and discard the other ones in the way, obviously. So if it's to play the third card, you can discard two into the discard pile and then play the third one out on that entrance. And where this game really gets you is in the use of dead ends, because that will end the game if you have nowhere to get back to, right? Where there's no other paths that branched off that you can go back and re-choose. Unless you're playing a real hardcore version of the game, and that's it. Door closes, dead end, you're done. Unless you have some bombs. Bombs can blow holes in walls. But check out The Abandons for a wild one-player high adventure style game. Now, another one in the same theme is Friday by Rio Grande Games. Now, Friday is a game where you are Robinson Crusoe, and you are trapped on the island. And the only one to help you is Friday. But what he does in the game is he's like advice, right? Advice on how to survive in the wilds here. So you're going to be playing these cards to deal with encounters that you have. And this is a declaration game, and it's a 2-card choose system. But this one, both cards are up, so you get to know which one you want to choose. And the game cycles are the same cards, but each card has 3 different levels on it. So if you're on the green, the yellow, or the red, the difficulty is going to be different. Now, meanwhile, every time you succeed in one of these tasks, you get that card in your discard pile. So when you run out and you reshuffle, it's a deck builder in a sense, right? And these cards, how you balance what you think you can do, what you think you can't do, as well as the things you can't do, but you're going to do anyway, because you're going to be able to get rid of some crappy cards from your hand, some 0 cards and negative cards. The balance is great and fun. I've played this game dozens of times. I haven't won once, and I still play. That should tell you something about it. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more combat-wise, we have something I'd like to offer up to you. Now, this, I have to admit, is going to be very difficult to get because it was only made as a Kickstarter. So unless somebody, and people do this, bought extra Kickstarter copies in order to sell later, or the publisher changes their mind, then you're going to have a tough time getting. But if you can, I'm telling you, get Way of the Samurai. Way of the Samurai is a brilliant one-on-one game, or one against the deck. There's a head-to-head option in the game, and also a campaign option, which is very interesting. But as its core, as it was designed, this one-player game, you head-to-head against an opponent card that was picked. And obviously the opponents get tougher and tougher and tougher as you learn to deal with each of them. But you're gonna be playing this combat game in a very, very fun way that I enjoy. It's a 3-card system. You're gonna be playing 3 combat cards out, but you only play 2. Right? And then the enemy plays a card, so you're able to see what some of their defense is, and then you get to play the 3rd card. So it sort of tries to simulate this feinting in combat, testing of your opponent, and then going in, I don't know what that was, with the big attack. Also in this game, you can change this game up by using different opponents. You can also change this up by attempting to use different weapons than the base katana that you have. And it builds up to this wonderful system of combat that is very fast and very smooth. I think it is one of the best samurai games I've yet to play. Another great one-player design game, which later had a 2-player and then campaign mode attached to it, is Robin Hood, Hero of the People. Now, this is a really fun card game where you're going to be trying to recruit, and if they get captured, then you have to rescue the Merry Men. And along the way, you're going to be dealing with story cards, 1-level and 2-level story cards that are going to be throwing things out at you, like getting searched and losing your swords, or getting hurt and losing your strength, villagers in trouble and need food. And a lot of these things, if you can't do it, the bounty on your head goes up. But as you're freeing other cards, each character of your Merry Men has their own specialty and abilities. Each of them is worth a certain number of cards. Like Robin is, I think, worth 3 bow and 2 swords. So if you need anything with bows or swords, you can count that character's card towards it. And anything that's not covered, then you need cards in your playing field. Cards in your playing fields are the ones that are in danger, not the ones in your hand. So it's this balance of management between what I want to place out because I need to use now, and I know I'm probably going to need next turn, versus what do I want to protect in my hand until it's really needed. This game is going to keep you coming back to play it. And especially as you play through the different modes, the 2-player mode, Sheriff Revenge, or the Legends mode, where it plays the entire campaign, the story we all know of Robin Hood, and becoming Robin Hood after the Crusades, recruiting Merry Men, dealing with the sheriff, with Guy of Gisborne. It covers the entire story, and it is so fun and so well done. If you're a Robin Hood fan and you like tabletop games, you definitely have to check out Robin Hood, Hero of the People. If you're looking for something with a little bit more horror, Fantasy Flight Games has Arkham Horror, the card game. This is a 2-player game, which is why I'm mentioning it last here, but it's 1 player. You can play 2 players, and it's not a variant. It's part of the actual game itself. You can play 1 or 2, but it really does shine as a 1-player game. Whether you're using 1 character or 2, it really does shine. It moves faster. It feels better paced, I think, as a solo play game. And during this game, you're going to increase your character's skills, abilities, items. Your character will be growing similar to an RPG style character. And this is important because, as I said, it's a Fantasy Flight game. So that means expansions. And yes, this game does have a ton of expansions. So as your character grows, the world, the Lovecraftian world around you is growing with you. Now, the last game by Asmodee Games, I want to point out, is also, like I just said, a 1 or 2-player game, but really shines as a 1-player game. In fact, you can play it 4 players if you have 2 copies of the game. And and that game is One Deck Dungeon, or the standalone sequel, One Deck Dungeon Forest of Shadows. And in these games, you have a choice of several different characters to play. You can choose 1 or 2 if you want to double it up. And it's a dice rolling, dice set collection style game. In order to overcome monsters and even the levels of the dungeon themselves, you are going to have to make certain rolls and place the rolled dice strategically what you think they're best going to be laid. Because even if you don't have enough dice to defeat a monster, you still collect that card. And you can use it for, and this is another thing I like, is the monster cards can be used for experience, or you can use it for an item, or you can use it for a skill, or you can use it for a potion. Not all of them. You got to choose how you're using the card for. And let's say you use it as a potion, and then you're at your max and you get another potion, then that card then goes over to experience. So you're still not kind of losing the XP in a sense. It's still possible to get it. But it brings the game together in such a fast, fun motion of delving down into the dungeon, several levels until you get to the boss. And they have several different bosses to choose from in each of the games, just as the characters themselves are different in each of the games. And in case this means anything to you, I'd also point out that every character you can play in the game, they're all female. So talk about, a lot of games have very little female characters in them, or not enough, or the ones they do are all stereotyped fantasy, BS. But this handles it very respectfully, I think, and the characters are all fun and interesting to play. So there you go. There goes a list for you of some amazing, fun, one-player option games. One-player made games in most cases. So if you are looking to add some one-player, and a few of them are one or two players, add some one-player games to your board game collection. Those are some of the ones I consider to be the best. So go check them out and let me know what you think some of the best one-player specific games are, because I'd like to know. Maybe I'm going to add them to my collection. Take care, everyone. I'm your buddy Big Giant G, the Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming, and my friends, I am out of here.